Hey.
Hello, Paul.
I'm going to go ahead and put my earbuds on.
Yeah, dude. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you great, man.
All right, I'm connected to my earbuds. Can you hear me, Zach?
Yeah, dude, I can hear you great, man. Can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me at all?
I can hear you now.
Okay, there you go.
All right, we're good. We're good. I got the earbuds in, and sometimes it's a little funky, like right in the beginning, where it's like it's wanting to battle probably something else that has Bluetooth in the area.
Oh yeah. If you got Bluetooth going on, man, that always happens. But hey, it's all good. We got you now, man. Fucking, we just got done blasting fucking Return to Rot. And
oh my goodness.
Fucking disgusting, man. Fucking so badass, dude. I love it, man. Fucking awesome.
Yeah,
dude.
great. So are we on the air right now? Are we live?
Yeah. We are fucking live, man.
Yeah, hell's fucking yeah.
So how you guys doing, man? What's going on in the world of Deteriorot?
Man, everything is just everything is going so great. We've just had like an incredible 12, 13 months since it just goes so fast when you think about it. It's like, okay, so we're in July right now, right? So it was just June of last year of 2023 that it was like our first show in like 5 or 6 years or so, and it was a really long hiatus, and then we had like a summer long European tour, and then we had like about a 6-month break after that tour, and we just got geared up back in April of this year. And man, it's like, to be like in such like high demand is after taking a hiatus it's not what I was expecting. It's gone beyond expectations. I could say I'm almost at a loss for words here, stuttering.
It's kind of like a resurgence, man. Like fucking yeah. I know, like this record came out in June 25th, 2023. So yeah, over a year now, man.
And it's wild. It's just been steamrolling. If some folks remember, like when the record first came out, so about the first 3 weeks of it was considered a pre-release because Xtreem Music out of Spain was their technical release date was, I think it was like July 18th or something like that. And so we had June 25th for US releases only. Yeah. And man, that thing sold out in about 2 days.
Dude, that's fucking awesome, man. What the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah, so it was, and I was not expecting that at all. When you have your inbox flooded with people wanting to order something that just doesn't exist anymore, like that really sucks. It's like, oh my gosh, it's like, so how long will it take to get like new CDs pressed, and we had to really like do a rush order to get another pressing in like 10 days or something like that, because it was crazy. So yeah, we had to do that. So,
but that's a good problem right there to have, though, man. Yeah. I mean, it could be the other way. Like that's a good fucking thing right there.
Right. And it's just like one of those things where like supply and demand works, like no matter like what the product is. It really is. We've never been a band that oversaturates touring and play. We're not Deicide or Cannibal Corpse that's going to come to your city probably like two times a year or so, and they're going to be at every single festival. So our stuff is a lot rarer than that. And same thing with releases. We've taken our time in between it. Some people think, oh well, it's why is it so long? But there's other priorities that you have in your life that have to come first.
Yeah.
And it's actually helped. Yeah, it's actually helped us more than hurt us. So, every single year, there's always a repressing of at least 2 or 3 of our releases or so. So like that has not slowed down. So
yeah, I know you guys.
So yeah,
I was gonna say, I know you guys have quite a history behind you too, man. Like a lot longer than I knew about initially. And I remember when Xtreem sent out that fucking promo for that record, I was like,
right.
I remember that name. And I remember checking you guys out like a long time ago. Fucking, I think before I even got into radio, I was hanging out in the chat room at another radio station called Brutal Existence Radio back in the day, back in the early 2000s, mid 2000s.
Right.
And they were playing something from you guys, and I remember checking it out and getting into it, and then years later I saw that and I was like, fuck yeah, man, that's those guys again. And then I went and looked it up, but like your history is a lot longer than I think maybe a lot of people know, man. Can you tell us a little bit about like how long have you guys been doing this, and how did you get started, man?
Oh my gosh! So I was 14 years old. I was basically not even in high school, because I was left back a year in 7th grade. So I was in 8th grade. I was in 8th grade, and that's when like I officially started the band then. And for about a good year and a half, we were under the name Mortuary.
And what year was that?
88.
Fuck.
Yeah. So we were under the So we were under the name Mortuary. I was 14. The drummer and the guitarist then were 17. So they had a license. They could drive. We can go to gigs and so forth. But it was at the exact same time where you had Revenant, Ripping Corpse. You didn't even have Incantation at that time. In fact, John McEntee, I met in '88 at one of our shows, and back then that's when he was in Revenant. So, it was just a different time where you were able to really figure out like how are you going to market yourself. I saw a lot of kids selling demo cassettes for $5 a person. And it was like, I don't know. It was like walking through a bad neighborhood and somebody's begging you for money, like outside of a gas station or something like that. I'm not kidding you. That's how it was with bands. There was a lot of bands. It was oversaturated with bands that were majority like thrash metal, because death metal was still kind of a gray area. So if you were playing metal, it was mostly thrash, and so there was just very select few that we were testing out these extreme waters with distorted vocals and just that heavy raspiness that a lot of thrash people just didn't like at that time. But the rare bands that were doing it were getting attention because we were really trying to make that local thrash scene obsolete. So yeah, we just wanted to blow everybody off the stages. So when I saw so many kids that were like trying to sell demos and so forth, I had the idea, as a 14-year-old kid, why don't I give away our cassettes? I can go to the local 5 and Dime store, and they have like really cheap blank cassettes. They would have 10 cassettes for $1. So I'd go out there and I'd get 100 cassettes, and I would dub cassettes all weekend long, and then go to like a local like Overkill show and just give away the cassettes. And people were like, "Oh, well, I don't have any money." It's like, hey, I don't remember asking you for anything. I wasn't asking you for money. Well, it's free. Yes, it's free. The psychology of like you giving somebody something, they take that and they remember that. And then when they see a flyer with our logo and so forth, they come to the show. So we basically had like an instant following within just a few months of just having just a cheap rehearsal demo cassette.
Yeah, you know,
So
that's funny. Like, it kind of reminds me of like the way it is nowadays with Bandcamp. A lot of bands, you know, throw out the Bandcamp codes. You give out a shitload of codes, and people are able to download the album and add it to their collection, and then follow it. But then they're able to see what else you're doing and keep up with it. And you know, sometimes it kind of works the same way. You know, like what you're talking about.
Yeah, it certainly did. So so we were young kids, but by the time I was, 15 and 16, it's like, you had your steady flow of your national acts that were coming to certain venues, and, they would contact locals or local bands would, want to be on that opening, they want to, open up for whoever's coming in town, if it's, Death and Carcass is coming to town and so forth. But, we had a different mindset. We were trying to build ourselves up, and we weren't really so concerned with somebody else's audience, because I knew that I had something with that idea of just really, giving the music away. And this is, you got to remember, this is like, 10 years or more before downloads and internet, and where people are upset that fans are getting their music for free. I don't mind it so much, because they're getting exposed to it. A fan that hears your music, likes it, enjoys it, that fan will come to a show, and guess what? They will buy a shirt. They will support you in some other way. They will talk about you to their friends. They say, hey, you got to hear this band, because a lot of people, like the clout of having a band that they think is, special to them, or nobody knows too much about it, so they want to go ahead and they're promoting you for you. So that was happening around that time, and we were giving away so many cassettes that we didn't really feel the need to heavily be the opener for the touring artists. We were the headliner at all of our shows, and we weren't even out of high school yet. So that was pretty cool. We, at the same time, we did get to open up for some bands like Entombed and Unleashed, Cannibal Corpse.
Hell yeah.
So we had those times. A lot of our shows we would team up with Immolation and Incantation, Ripping Corpse. We were just like Jersey strong, man. Like the Jersey scene was something that we were. We felt we were the best scene. Everybody was giving Florida so much attention, by like 91, 92. And we really thought that we were doing something different. Our New Jersey bands had more of like a death and doom vibe combined. You would have some slow parts, and then you would have some speed parts and so forth. Mm-hmm. So
kind of like a little bit like Autopsy, I think. That's,
yes.
That's kind of how I look at them, or Obituary too, man.
Right.
Fuck yeah, dude.
So when you think about it, like that was like the first generation of death metal. It's like, like Autopsy was influencing everything that was going on in like the UK, Finland, and so forth. A lot of Finnish death metal. And then that stuff that was coming out of Finland and Sweden, that was coming back. And a lot of us in New York and New Jersey, like, we were really digging that. Where I think a lot of the Florida scene, they were more kind of thrash crossover kind of still. There was a lot of heavier influence of like Bay Area thrash. Like when you listen to like, Deicide or something like that. Like when you listen to like a Deicide, it has more of a thrash base to that type of riffing.
Yeah.
and so forth. But that was different than what New Jersey was doing. New Jersey was doing stuff that was like heavily, definitely influenced from Autopsy, the stuff that was coming out of UK, Carcass, Paradise Lost, Abhorrence, Amorphous, Entombed, Dismember. That definitely took a big influence on our scene then.
Yeah, I saw that interview that you did with J-Dog from fucking Hell's Headbangers, which was really cool, by the way. But
yes,
you guys were talking about that, like the early stages of death metal and everything. You were talking about how the thrash metal sound was in there, and when I was watching that, I was totally identifying with that, because I remember that, and like I've always noticed that, like with those, especially with some of the early records from a lot of those bands, like the first Malevolent Creation album,
right,
the first, even Sepultura, like I guess eventually they got considered sort of death metal, but they really sounded thrash metal. But there was a lot of bands, even Cannibal Corpse, their first record, Eaten Back to Life, it had a totally different sound than what happened later on. Like it definitely, the thrash metal thing was definitely. Well, you were talking about like the beginning of death metal. Like, what's your opinion on, like, what's that first fucking album that you think, in your opinion, is like the first really death metal album?
Yeah, so there's so many differences of opinions and arguments, but I can tell you that for me, being a 13-year-old kid in like 1987, for me, I think the transition was definitely like hearing European extreme metal. It wasn't so much what was coming out of the States. Hearing like the Morbid Tales and Hellhammer. Like, what do you identify that with? Some people call it, is that first wave black metal? What is it exactly? It's like, for us when we were, 12, 13, and 14, to us that was just something different. Great. There's a gray area in death metal. For me, I consider that like a huge influential album for death metal. I mean, if there's no Celtic Frost, Morbid Tales, how is there an Obituary, Slowly We Rot?
Yeah.
That came out of that.
Yeah, for sure.
That came from that.
It did.
So that came from that. When I first heard Sodom in the Sign of Evil EP, and I mean, what year was this? This was like 84 or so. What else was sounding like that? Even let's go back to even like Sepultura with like their Morbid Visions and the Bestial albums, like this. Yeah. And I get it, they're not full-length albums. These were all like EPs and so forth. But like, if this isn't like, like you're making a soup, and like if these aren't like the main ingredients to this soup of what's death metal, I mean, like, then what is? A lot of people want to consider Possessed. I think Possessed with like the aesthetics, yes, but how is that any different from, say, Slayer's, early days of, wearing the, really the Judas Priest influence type of studs and so forth, leather. So, I mean, it's all connected, but
they even had they even had makeup.
Yeah, they even
with the eye, they had the black shit under their eyes and stuff. Like, it was
right. Absolutely, but Possessed to me, it's a thrash record. To me, it is. Does it have elements that influence death metal? Of course it does. But so does Slayer. So does Slayer, Rain and Blood.
So what do you think is the first death metal album? Fucking
man, it's like. It's like, you can go to that, death, scream, bloody gore, but, like that was like the first really like polished, we're talking about like a polished full-length album, because then some people will argue, oh, well, what about Morbid Angel? Then they have, to me, what Morbid Angel had before Altars of Madness, and those guys themselves, I knew those guys from back then, they didn't consider anything before Altars their first album. They considered it more like it was a glorified demo And then after Altars of Madness came out, of course, that other record company wanted to press that because when Altars of Madness came out, man, like that was a huge record, man. That was like the game changer. That was like to me. I know Napalm Death was doing blast beats before that, but to me, that was the first time that I heard blast beats was on Altars of Madness, and it was like I never even like imagined a blast. Like I never thought it would be that fast. To me, the fastest was like the Rain and Blood album from Slayer. So when you hear Altars of Madness and you hear that blast, you're like, what the hell? How is it so damn fast? It's crazy. And it has its melodic moments. I mean, it's just a technically great album. I mean, that's, but anything before Altars of Madness, I don't think it's their real album. Do you?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I guess I would consider Altars definitely. I mean, that's their first album. Like that's their
first album.
That's their first album. There's no.
Yeah.
You can't argue that. The one before that, it was a demo, but
right. The Abominations of Desolations. Yeah.
Yeah, most people didn't even know about that until probably in the last few years when stuff on the internet started bringing old shit like that back up, but like back in the old days, it was the album. But I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. I've always thought about death metal personally as far as like the growling, like the fucking the vocal part of it, because the music itself, yeah, a lot of it was brutal in those early days, but the growling, that's the fucking guttural growl,
right.
Really, it's hard to say, man. I don't know. Like one of the first bands that I heard that was death metal was Deicide, personally. And that was on the radio back in 1990, when I was living in Maryland, and there was a radio station out of that place. I can't remember the name of it, The Underground. And it was run by these college kids, and they were playing all kinds of fucking stuff. But late at night, they would get into the more extreme shit. And I would always tape record those shows. And I remember one night, they played Deicide, Sacrificial Suicide, and the title track from that first record. And that was the first time I'd really heard anything that fucking extreme. And I was just blown away. But, of course, right away, I started looking into it and digging it up, and trying to find other stuff that was out there, and learned about Morbid Angel and everything else, man. But like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's hard to say like what was the first, because there were so many at that time that were doing different takes of it,
Right. I tell you this, for people that argue about Possessed. For me, I'm going to really take a point of, how are you identifying yourself? Okay. Like if, whatever beliefs that you are, let's say you're denying something. So if you're denying something, so they've denied the label of even, death metal or thrash metal in interviews from the 80s.
Yeah.
So when I see that, that kind of rubs me the wrong way. It's like, you don't want to identify yourself as that. They want to identify themselves as just like a regular heavy metal band.
Right. It's kind of like Motorhead. Lemmy always said, "No, this is just fucking rock and roll, man. Like, this isn't
right.
We don't fucking they didn't really want to stick with the fucking heavy metal thing, but like everybody, like metalheads everywhere, fucking everybody loves fucking Motorhead, and we all think of it as metal, but they themselves thought of it as just rock and roll. I think Black Sabbath was probably the same way too, like just fucking doing what they're doing, man.
Yeah, but if you ask Black Sabbath what they are, they will tell you we are a heavy metal. Like they take pride in having that, because they're considered to be like the originators of the entire genre. Mm-hmm. So they take pride in calling themselves a heavy metal band. Now, for a band that wrote a song called death metal, and they're asking them like, what would you label yourselves at? We hear all these terms, speed metal, thrash metal, and and they felt like even like embarrassed of like just having a heavier genre other than just heavy metal, because they're like, oh well, people think that they think it's like a less intelligent form of metal or so forth, and it's like it's just the opposite. It's like I think people would consider it to be like a harder, like more technical than just but to deny it, I don't know. Listen, it's rubbed me the wrong way for years. I've had reels of those videos. I posted them up on my Deteriorot page and in the past and so forth. But yeah, I don't. I will never say Deteriorot is not a death metal band. I mean, that's just like, like what the fuck? Never.
Yeah, and it's funny too. Like when you look back in the old days in the '80s and stuff, when you look at all those magazines back in those days, when they would advertise stuff, they would always there was a lot of different terms being thrown around. Like sometimes they would call shit like that speed metal or extreme metal or like whatever. Like there was so many different. It was way different than it is nowadays, like where everything is much more categorized. But yeah, for sure, man. When I listen to Possessed, in my mind, it sounds thrash metal to me. Like that sounds.
Yes.
It has that same kind of vibe. It reminds me of early Slayer. Early.
And nothing wrong with it. Yeah, and nothing wrong with it. Like it's Seven Churches is a great album. It's definitely an influential album for death metal. It's not an insult to call them thrash metal. I just think it's just more correct categorizing of what it is.
Even Death's first album has like a different sound than what they went to later on, like Scream Bloody Gore is fucking totally different from everything else that they did, man. It has, it's more of a, I don't know if it's maybe it had something to do with the producers and the mixing people that were doing it at the time, like what kind of effects they were using and how they were pushing it more towards that treble end where it was more high end stuff, and more screaming kind of shit. Versus where it became more, eventually it became more in the low end, and you had that double bass and the fucking, that shit like that Scott Burns was doing, man, with the fucking, all those bands, dude.
Right, because all that really changed like a lot of things for, Scott Burns overproduced a lot of these albums where it made it more marketable and, made it more, user friendly, and a lot of people that probably wouldn't have liked this form of music, but maybe they liked it now because it sounded more polished up. Maybe it sounded closer to Metallica records or something like that. It changed the face for that. But then there was the whole side of the coin where there were the original enthusiasts of the original recipe, and that's like people like me, so, and I wasn't alone, we have like our own scene and our own demographic that, that stuff like rubbed us the wrong way. And like it made us want to pursue more underground labels and more underground recordings. And we felt like everything else were being spoon fed some type of corporate death metal that wasn't sitting well with us. It's like, no, it's like still we were kind of just turning more to a lot of European labels and that's kind of like how I discovered like Osmos Productions and Drown Productions. A lot of these labels from Europe were still pretty young. Peaceville, like that had Autopsy and Paradise Lost and so forth.
Hell yeah, man. Well, as far as you guys, man, like, you guys definitely nail the fucking, like, really raw fucking, I mean, the recording of your shit, it sounds good, but it definitely has, like, a very raw feel to it. Like, it's not as polished as a lot of other stuff, but it's really, really good, man. What can you tell us about, like, the studio process of how do you guys record these albums?
Yeah, so for instance, we were still using analog well into the computer age, because I don't like synthetic sounds. It sounds fake to me. I hear a lot of music that all sounds like the same exact, probably a drum program or so. It sounds the same amp simulators and so forth, and everything just sounds the damn same. And I'm like, what the hell is this? It's like, and everybody's okay with it, and I'm not okay with it. And well into 2010, where we're still using analog, and we're recording with microphones on a real amplifier, and everything is real and it's organic, and I'm so fucking proud of it. Because when people hear the Rebirth album, they're like, this sounds like a real band.
It does, man. It sounds like you're in the room. When I listen to it, it sounds like I'm in the room with you guys, and I can visualize it, like I'm sitting there in front of the whole band while you're playing, and I can hear the that fucking shit that comes out of the speakers, when they're fucking rattling and stuff, like you can feel the air moving, which is a hard thing to that's a hard thing to capture, man. But you guys are doing it, man. For the gearheads out there that are listening, I got to ask you, man, because I'm one of them, dude. We love hearing all that shit, dude. Tell us, man, what kind of amps and pedals and stuff like that are you guys using?
Man, it's just bare bones shit. It is as basic as you can get. For instance, the Deteriorot tone is a blended tone, so it's not a like a singular tone. So I had this idea as a kid, because I had a speaker with you got your woofer and your tweeter, and we had one set that the woofer was bad, so all you heard was the darn tweeter, and the other speaker had the opposite problem. So you had the tweeter that went out, and the subwoofer was working. So by itself, it sounds like shit, but together it makes this sound that it needs to be together. So you need that bass and that treble. So I was like, what if we did that as a guitar tone? So I'm hearing a lot of this Swedish death metal in 1990, and seeing that they were using the HM2 Boss heavy metal tone, and it's like, so I see these bands, and it's like they're all doing the HM2. So it's not just one guitar. It's like so you have both guitarists using that same tone. So it's either you're in or you're out. So either they're doing that, or bands that were outside of Sweden weren't doing that. So I was like, why has no one thought about mixing the sounds together? And I was like, what if we have one of our guitarists? We didn't know who it was going to be. It ended up being me, So what if we just had only just one of the guitarists in the band using that HM2 chainsaw tone, but the other guitar player would have a more bassier tone. So that's like your subwoofer and your frickin' tweeter, because that chainsaw tone is very mid-rangey. I don't like it by itself. I think it sounds like shit if it was both guitars doing it. So you need that bass, bassy tone with it. And when you put it together, man, that's what you hear when you're listening to Deteriorot. You hear the Rebirth album. So you're hearing those two. You're hearing a bassier guitar tone, and you're hearing the HM2 tone. And that other guitar, it's a mix of, like, you have a little bit of a high end tone, and then you have another one that's just like a very bassy, and we're layering them both together. So that has a nice sound to that.
That's cool as hell, man. That reminds me of when I was a kid and I used to plug into my fucking stereo and play my guitar through that. Just run it through a distortion pedal into the fucking stereo, into the mic input. Because old stereo systems, they used to have a mic input. I don't know why. Like, I've always wondered that. Like, I guess back in the old days, people were doing karaoke or some shit like that was normal. I don't know, but
right.
there was always a mic input on the fucking thing, and yeah, it was like, it didn't even think about it, you know. It didn't have an amp, so it was like, that's the same fucking size plug right there for this fucking cord that I have, so I'm just gonna stick it in there and see what happens. And it would have this crazy fucking sound that would come out of the speakers, I guess because of the tweeters being, you know, included with the fucking subs, and it would sound very different, like very alien almost, you know, like compared to what you're used to hearing, because it's different. That's cool that you guys fucking like used that for, you know, like, and exploited it in that way, man. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah. Dude. Yeah. So that's what it is. Like, so when I'm recording the Deteriorot, I do one of the rhythm tracks will be the HM2 through a Marshall cabinet, and then the other rhythm guitar's tone is just your Marshall distortion, just your straight up Marshall distortion. No, there's nothing fancy about it, and it's exactly what it's supposed to sound like. It's I didn't want it to be aesthetic. I wanted it to just be just a natural Marshall amp, and no distortion pedal on that. It's just plug in. That's it. Plug into the head. Mic to the cabinet.
Well, tell us about this artwork, because the artwork on this record is fucking. This is badass, dude. This is like everything that you want to see in a fucking death metal record. I mean, this takes me back right here when I'm looking at it. The Rebirth. This takes me back, dude, to fucking the 90s, early 90s, when I was getting into all these different bands. Who did this fucking artwork, man? What's the story behind it?
Yeah, so that artwork came from a gentleman named Ewenk, Iwenk, and he had just a lot of artwork that just didn't it just didn't mesh with me. And it was one of those things where, you know, we had to talk about what we were looking for, and I really didn't think that he had anything that really like fit my style and so forth, because a lot of his artwork was covered with like a bunch of faces and just like weird beings everywhere, and I'm like, I was like, I don't want like all these dudes on the album cover. I was like, and like every single one of his album covers were like that, you know. So I was like, can we have something like without all these faces and so forth? And I told him what my concept was. It's, you know, at that time the Rebirth was actually initially going to be Awakening. So Awakening was like, well, I was like, I think if anything, there should be like one being, and it's like this being that's just like, it's kind of like the Deteriorot story of our hiatus. So, you know, we've been in this long slumber, and now here's this being out of nowhere. It's like awakening, and it looks like, I don't know, like a post-apocalyptic world or something like that, or an underworld. And he just like went with that, and that's what he came up with. So I wrote a bunch of songs for this album, Awakening, and that is not the album. That's not the album. That's the Rebirth. So we really had like so at this point we really had like 2 albums worth. So we were kind of in a time constraint, because our guys are about 9 hours from where I live, and they also play in other bands. So at the time where we were needing, you know, them to really record, you know, they were, you know, busy with their other band, with their recordings and so forth. So it just came down to the wire where we were probably like less than 2 months from our European tour, and we have no album. So I said, you know what, we have to. It's Memorial Weekend in 2023. Remember, the album came out June 25th. So in Memorial Weekend, I had to just really just drive up to Louisville, Kentucky from Charlotte, North Carolina. And I said, we have to record an album like this weekend. And that week, I wrote the entire album of the Rebirth. It was just one of those things where we had to just do it fast. I had a blueprint. I had a plan. I had an idea. I said, there's not going to be a song that's really like more than 3.5 to 4 minutes. It's going to be a blueprint type of construction, kind of like when you listen to like an old Judas Priest record or Metallica's Kill 'Em All. It has like this blueprint of like a verse, chorus, verse. There's a bridge in the middle with a guitar solo, and then it takes you right back to the beginning of the song to go ahead and close the song out. I said I can construct songs in this pattern, and I just wrote the album in 2 days. And we recorded it in like another 2 to 3 days. And I mixed it and mastered it myself for about another week, and then sent it to press, and it was in my hands about 3 days before release date.
Wow. Well, Paul,
Yeah.
that is fucking bad fucking ass, dude. That is.
Yeah.
That really is, man. Well, dude, I'm about out of questions for you, man. Is there anything else you want to let the people know?
Yeah, so we have a lot of great things that's going on right now. Next month we are headlining at Chapel of Bones in Raleigh, North Carolina. We're playing with Mockery out of South Carolina. They're a blackened death metal band, newer band. Necrocosm and Four Token, who's on Prosthetic Records. Four Token, what's very interesting about Four Token is so they have this record out, but they've never been a live band before up until about 2 months ago. So they never had a live lineup. So they're on this bill. So I think this is probably their third or their fourth show since their first show in May. We have Metal Threat going on in Chicago, which is October the 5th on a Friday. We're playing with Mortician, Cardiac Arrest, Pig's Blood. We got some, we have some great things going on. November Horror in South Carolina. It's a death metal festival out of Spartanburg, South Carolina, Ground Zero. We're the headliner there. The end of the year, we're in Los Angeles. Long Beach, California. You'll get a kick out of the name of this festival. It's called Immaculate Ejaculate.
Yeah, I think I saw the flyer for that.
Yeah. I don't know where they come up with these names, but it's great. It's fantastic. Immaculate Ejaculate. So I'll be at Immaculate Ejaculate, Volume 1. Headliner there. Deteriorot headlines in December 7th. So that's about it. We worked very hard to we position ourselves to always be the headliner. It's very rare that we get a lot of heavy touring or anything like that. So we want to make up with quality versus quantity, and that's how we do with our releases too. So that's been our story.
Fuck yeah, man. Well, for people out there that want to support you guys, go buy some merch, buy music and stuff like that, where's the best place for them to go?
The best place, I would say, is always like the only place is support your artists, support your local. It's Deteriorot.bandcamp.com is our official merch page. We're very active. It's my wife and I, we do all the merch ourselves. Every merch order, we always put in an autograph promo photo in there. We sign everything. We take merchandise like very seriously. So we're not out of stock on stuff. We always resupply. We have all of our albums are stocked. We have shirts. We have patches. We have hats. We have tapestry flags. You name it, we have it. So please support Deteriorot.bandcamp.com.
Hell yeah, dude.
I've had people message me. To ask me, hey, do you know if Hell's Headbangers carries your merchandise. And it's like, motherfucker, I carry my merchandise. You're contacting the source directly. Motherfuckers.
It's nothing better than that, though. You know, like, I that's one of the cool things about the modern music world, I think, you know, to me anyways, like, you can get stuff directly from the people that make it. You can support it directly, and I love it, dude. I love it when I fucking buy shit and I get stuff and it comes with little notes and fucking signed shit. Like, I collect all that shit. I save that shit, man. A lot of people do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. And I think that perhaps maybe we're doing something that's maybe it's a little bit more unique, because when, you know, I reach out to other bands, I've tried to get merchandise from other bands, and it's like, either I'm ghosted, or they don't, you know, or they don't have it, or they don't really get back to me. Like, you know, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus, but like, you know, I like this band Phobophilic. They're on Prosthetic Records. We played with them in Europe, and I'm like, man, I was like, this band is kick ass, you know. So, you know, I've reached out to their drummer before, and I said, hey, you know, it's like, I'd really like to buy a CD and so forth, and you know, I don't really hear back, or I'd like to get a shirt and so forth. And I've reached out to other bands as well too, just because I'm trying to do what I think, like, hey, you know, like, I could use the support for people to buy merchandise from us, because that's what we use. That money is what we use for advertising. That's the money that we use for shit. To go to rehearsal, I got to drive 9 hours each way. You know, it's a long way.
Yeah.
When I do these video ad spots, that costs money. So all that comes from merchandise sales. So yeah, I try to do that, but I think that it seems like a lot of bands really aren't hands-on with their merchandise, and they probably do just prefer to leave it to label or some other third party and so forth.
Man, you know what? You bring up a really important thing right there, you know, and that's one of the things I try to drive home with so many bands that I work with MDPR, you know. I'm always telling them, man, you got to fucking communicate with your fans, with people in general. Just talk to them, you know, and get in there and be personable, because it'll take you so much further than you would think, you know. Like, it does, because like you said, you know, there's so many bands out there that are kind of unreachable for some reason, for, you know, whatever it is, you know, it's the label, the management, or whatever it is that's in the way. But man, like, you know, like, in today's world, you got to get out there and fucking talk to folks, man. You gotta hustle your own shit, man. You got to. That's a big part of it.
You certainly do. So I read a statement, and I've seen some posts like within the last 24 hours. And I'm sorry, I know you were like trying to end the interview, but sorry, you're with Paul Zavaleta from Deteriorot, and sometimes I can just I can just help you with adding more content to the show. But yeah, so I just seen recently some. I'm not sure what band he was from. I'm not sure if he was from Exodus but somebody was bitching about saying, hey, I'm no longer a musician. I'm really just a damn T-shirt salesman, and I never really wanted to be a T-shirt salesman. And I'm just like, it's like, dude, it's like, you know, if you think of yourself like it's a bad attitude to have, because the fact that you're, say, behind a merch table, like, you're talking to your demographic that is like paying for all this possible, because there's not much money in on the record label side of album sales. So really, it's the merch sales. So shake some hands, talk to people. They're excited to be there. You know, if they're going to the merch table, they want to meet the guy behind the music. So it's like a meet and greet.
Hell yeah, man.
And people like that. You know, you talk to them and so forth. But even before, like, we do shows, like, we scout certain areas, especially if it's a travel area. We've traveled 11 hours, my wife and I, to hit a venue that we're playing at within a month. So we can go. So we'll look for shows that's happening like within 30 days of different states, different regions, and we're like, you know what? So it's going to be a road trip. We're going to go to that show, and we're going to go with flyers, and we're going to talk to people. It's just like a campaign. You know what? If the presidential campaigns, if they can still go out and do that and shake hands, and that works. Okay, so you should always think of yourself as not just a musician, but somebody that people really gotta like you to buy from you.
Yeah, for sure.
They do.
For sure, man. Like, I mean, that's one of my favorite things from what we do with the Tennessee Metal Devastation Music Fest, man. Like, we've got that going on down here, and every time, that's one of my favorite things. Just meeting everybody, shaking hands with them, and talking to them. And when they come over to the merch fucking table, buy T-shirts and stuff like that. Like, that's what, you know. And you build relationships with people, and you see their smile, and you. I don't know, man. Like, there's just something.
People get excited.
It's cool, man.
Yeah, people get excited. They want to take pictures. They want to talk to you, and ironically, they want to talk to you about other bands because that's what they're passionate about. They're passionate about metal music, so they're asking you, "Hey, have you heard this band? Have you heard that band?" It's like, no, So they want to tell me about other bands, or they want to show me like a certain band's band page or something like that, and they're like, "Yeah, you should really check them out." But they like that. But to hear somebody that's like on pretty big platform. I think it was Exodus. I'm not sure if it was. Exodus.
It was. Yeah, I saw that.
Like, that's a pretty big platform, and you're going to complain that, hey, you're a T-shirt salesman. It's like, you know what, you want as many people to have your shirt, and it's nice that they're getting it directly from one of the artists personally. So I don't know.
Exactly, man. Be glad you're selling something, for fuck's sakes, man. Like.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there that are doing this thing and they're not able to, but if you're able to, just embrace it and be happy with it and try to ride it out, man. Well, yeah.
Worry when they're not coming to the shows and there's nobody buying it. That's
exactly.
Well, but that's about it. So we're gonna have some new music videos. We're gonna have we have a series of videos. Return to Rot video had just come out. We have some more videos coming up. I know we were set to do I think 3 altogether, like 1 video a month. But I'm so excited about this. I think we're going to do a video for probably maybe even 2 more songs after that. We could probably just do the entire album, have a music video for the entire album. How about that?
That'd be badass, dude. I've been loving these videos that you guys been putting out, and yeah, man, I cannot wait to see the reaction on the new one. That new one is fucking insane, dude. Hell yeah. Well, before I let you go, man, can I get you to make us a station tag real quick?
Absolutely.
All right, whenever you're ready, say something like, "This is Deteriorot, and you're listening to Metal Devastation Radio."
Okay. This is Paul Zavaleta of Deteriorot, and you're listening to Metal Devastation Radio.
Fuck yeah.
Keep rotting.
Hell yeah. Well, speaking of rotting, man, we're going to play some more of you guys right now for these motherfuckers so they go crazy, all right?
Fuck yeah, man. Thanks.
All right, man. Thanks so much.
I appreciate it, man.
Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us, dude. I really appreciate it, and we will talk soon, man.
Absolutely. We gotta get you down for one of these gigs. If I'm going to recommend a show for you to go to, I would recommend you to come to South Carolina for November 16th.
Yeah,
we're going to have 7 bands all together. It's going to be great. It's a low price ticket. It's like $15 with your promo code discounts.
Fuck yeah, dude. That's not that far from me, man. I'll definitely try to make that shit.
Hell yeah.
Be cool to meet you, dude.
Yeah, likewise. All right. All right. You guys have a good night. Thanks everybody for listening. Signing off.
Cheers, Paul.
Cheers to you.
There you have it, folks. Paul from Deteriorot live on the Zach Moonshine Show with Metal Devastation motherfucking Radio. Like I said earlier, put your speakers in your windows, put them in your front lawn.